Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Trader Merlin Show for your Monday edition. Hope you had a great weekend out there. I'm going minimal attire today, just a little white t-shirt. I was doing some recording today, so that's what we're getting. Again, hope you had a great weekend. It was a good one for me. A lot of closure on some of my issues that I've been having, so that's a really good thing. Moving on. And now I gave the girl every chance in the world to work with me and maybe continue on, and met with nothing but hostility and anger. So we will move on, and better things ahead for me. The cheerful Merlin will be back, and the energetic Merlin will be back as well. So let's dive into our topic du jour. Obviously, we had a complete about face with our equity market today, which was nice. I got stuck with some positions, extra MicroStrategy positions on Friday's close with some of the put options that I've been selling. So let's talk about the Tweezer Bottom. It's a classic candlestick formation. I think it's really important to look at because, you know, when you have patterns, obviously they tell stories about what's going on in the market. And today I think there was a big story to be told. I'll start with the market, which is the S&P 500. And lo and behold, there she blows. You can see the basics of a tweezer pattern are this. You have a downtrend, which we have had downward facing candles here for quite some time. Well, not quite some time, but let's say 6 trading sessions, right? So we've got this really big red candle we had on Friday's session for the S&P. That candle bottomed out at a low price of 6,239. Well, a tweezer bottom is a reversal formation. You can see what happened is typically they have a very close, if not dead equal low. So it opened up right about where Friday's candle closed, a little bit lower, sold off for a little bit, making an intraday low of 6,251. So just a couple of points away from the bottom from Friday. And then proceeded to rip all day long, almost engulfing the entire candle from Friday's session. That is in the book of Encyclopedia of Candlestick Patterns by Steve Nissen, a very powerful reversal formation. And you can kind of see it on the screen there. If you just, take a step back and look at the price charts like I always tell you to do and do myself, we have to look for emotion. We have to look for fear. We have to look for greed. Mike called those the Adam and Eve candles. Yes, I know. Yep. Good old Mike. Wait, I'll see if I can get him to come on again. I always like Mike. Some people think he's a curmudgeon, but I love him. He's awesome. Good guy. So the point of that reversal pattern is going into Friday's session, I think you'd all agree, the market's like, this doesn't look good, right? Even we were saying it here, it doesn't look good. And I was making the reference point, at least for me, that this line on the bottom of your screen here, actually in the middle of the screen, at 6,246, is really a critical line for us not to close below that line. So today we came really close to it and then just proceeded to rip all day long on the S&P, which is great. That does imply that sentiment has changed. Whatever factors were pushing this market down all last week, literally every day last week, the markets were getting pushed lower and lower and lower. Well, we started off with erasing all of Friday's gains, and if history or candlestick pattern study tells you anything, then we should see some nice follow through here. And maybe even, I think it might be a stretch to say we get to all-time highs this week, but the momentum we had on today's activities was fantastic. And of course, we could couple that with some of the earnings announcements as well, and maybe even boost it higher. So let's look at some of the other indexes. That was your S&P, was up 1.66%. I did not sort these by any number here. Your Russell 2000 was your leader. Now, this is not really a tweezer bottom for the Russell because notice the lows from Friday's session and today are nowhere near the same. So that technically isn't. Some people could argue that that's an engulfing candle or something like that, but it really just reflects a monumental shift in sentiment. Whereas every day last week for the Russell was a down day, today we just screamed from the lowest to the high point in one day. Let's see if that momentum continues. NASDAQ, a little bit closer to what we saw with the S&P, right? Because those lows are fairly close. The low from Friday on the NASDAQ was 22,775, and today our low was 22,821. So pretty darn close to being spot on. So tweezer bottom for the NASDAQ, tweezer bottom for the S&P 500. That does look like some bullish activity for tomorrow. But wait, could there be things that cause our markets to not react very well or cause our markets to have some issues? Thanks, Margaret. And Margaret, just so you know, I went all out trying. I gave every ounce of my effort to rekindle it and make amends and go to therapy and and for some reason just met with nothing but hostility and nothing I can do is change. So, it's unfortunate, but that's the case. Bigger and better things, right? There's someone else that's better out there for me than if that was the case it was meant to be. is there a measured move for the Tweezer Bottom? I'm not so familiar if there is a measured move, right? A measured move on this one. I don't know. For me, I would look at just the range of it and see just the momentum. That if we recoup this much in one day, then I think that we should be at all-time highs, right? She will come. Nah, I doubt it, Margaret. I'm closing the door right now. If you guys were privy to any of the conversations that happened over the weekend, you would have been like, really? Wow. Okay. There's no need to say those types of things and be like that. So move on. Trader Merlin needs to work with us to help him understand his yes. Please help me work with it. Look, trading by itself is one of the hardest things to figure out. But I will tell you, ladies, you are another conundrum altogether. Very difficult to figure out what is going on. Where's the cipher for you ladies out there? I feel like I'm thinking one thing and sure thinking a completely different other. So yeah, maybe that's what I do need. Oh, thanks, Mark. Yes. It's tough, when you're with someone for so long. I'm sure some of you guys have been divorced. Going through that, it's got to be just such a challenging process because you just committed so much to a relationship and then it's gone and you're like, oh, I want it back so bad, which is where I'm at. But I can only do so much, man. I think I've got a lot to offer and I think I'm a pretty decent person, but apparently she doesn't think that way. It's okay. We're at least, oh boy, Lisa, we could do a gender show today. Men are pretty easy. We've pretty much got a one-track mind. Most. All right, let's get off this topic before I get in trouble. Let's see. So as far as the measuring object, I just don't know. I don't think when I went through the book on candlesticks, I don't recall there being a measuring object there. There probably is. Steve Nissen will always calculate like what's the typical move that it moves up, etc. Just in my opinion, I think it's much easier for you to look at that pattern today and go, at a minimum, it does imply that tomorrow is going to be a pretty bullish day. Now, we all know that doesn't have to happen, but there's a pretty good chance we're going to see some bullish sentiment tomorrow, especially once you factor in some of the earnings announcements as well. But there is one little wrinkle here that I need to make sure we get addressed, and that is, I sound like a broken record. I hate it. I really don't want to sound like a broken record, but we have more trade issues going on. Now, the big issue is Trump playing hardball with India. Now, India gets a lot of their oil from Russia. And Trump is making this statement and the case, to which I don't know the factual validity of all this because I'm just not there to see it, but I have to, you have to quote unquote trust what you see in the media, that India is getting a lot of this Russian oil. They're selling it and make a profit on it because of, and Trump's upset with that. So he's talking about substantially raising the tariffs on India, which right now are supposed to be at 25%, but now they're unknown. We haven't heard the exact number, but Trump was saying significantly increase the tariff on Indian goods into the United States as long as India continues to buy Russian oil. So putting more pressure on Putin. I'll tell you a story that maybe I think reflects this current situation and my concern for it. I think I may have mentioned this story before, but I was traveling through Thailand with my friend Josh. Here we go. We're back to our Thailand stories. Don't worry, I'll keep it clean. So, for the most part, if anybody here has ever visited Thailand, they are some of the friendliest, nicest, most kind people you will ever meet. Very submissive, just generally really good people. And my friend had bought some DVDs. It used to be a street vendors, and there's this one promenade where it's just tons and tons and tons and tons of street vendors. And this one group was selling DVDs. So when I arrived in Thailand and went to our hotel room, Josh was already there the day before, and I was like, hey, look. He says, I bought all these DVDs, none of them work, I want to take them back tomorrow. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So we go by this stand, and it's right on the main drag. There's tourists walking in front of us. It's like a 4x4 table just loaded with DVDs. And Josh is talking to the customer, and the business guy. He's like, hey, you told me these DVDs, you sold me these ones, they don't work. So basically what he's saying is like, I want my money back. And the vendor said, I'll let you exchange for other ones. And Josh is very calm and, very nice. And I didn't realize there were 3 people total. Josh was talking to the vendor, and there was a big guy next to the fence and another little guy off to the side. Well, Josh is slow at getting to a point. And I was like, I just turned to the vendor and I'm like, hey, listen, he doesn't want to exchange these because none of them work. They're all garbage. So he just wants his money back. You know, if I sold you a car that didn't work, would you want your money back? And I saw him clenching his jaw. And a customer walked up and just exchanged, no returns, Rob. So this guy walks up with his wife or girlfriend. They look like Swedish, tall Swedes. And I say, guys, don't buy any of these DVDs. They don't work. And instantly, these 3 Thai people jumped us. So the big guy, the really big stocky dude that was against the fence, he grabbed a 2x4 and smacked Josh. And all I remember seeing Josh go down. The skinny guy, the vendor grabs me from behind. The skinny guy grabs a pipe and he starts swinging the pipe at me. So I'm not a fighter, but I took a lot of judo when I was younger. And I'll tell you, muscle memory is an amazing thing. So I ended up grabbing the guy's pipe before he hit me. I start to swing at it, and the guy's grabbed me from behind, so I leaned as far forward as I could. I reared back, and I smacked this guy straight in the nose with the back of my head, broke his nose. I could hear it crack. And then I'm chasing these 2 guys down the street with a pipe. Long-winded story for, I think that the situation is very similar to what's going on with Russia. I feel like Russia's just kind of like, leave us alone, don't mess with us, you're not... By doing this move with India, saying, hey, you're buying Russian oil, knock it off, or we're going to put tariffs on you, you're putting India in a situation where they have to decide, do we continue to get cheap oil from Russia, which fuels our country and helps our citizens because we need it, or do we bend the knee to Trump and the United States? There's a dilemma there, and it's almost like that example of the business where at some point, Russia, who I would say would be the vendor of this DVDs here, could just go crazy. It seems like they've tried to keep themselves calm, and I just feel like this is going to escalate here. I hope it doesn't. That's on the black swan list. It's what is Russia going to really start to just say enough? We've had enough of this U.S. posturing and tariffs and retaliatory stuff. Do we come back and get violent? So, yeah, this is a strange situation to be in. We've known it's been escalating for a while. And, of course, with Russia and Trump saying, hey, I want this whole Ukraine thing resolved within a week, right? It was like 50 days, and now it's a week by the end of this week. We'll see what happens. But just keep that in mind as we get near the tail end of this week. I do expect to see more volatility pop up just because of that uncertainty. And, Trump, I think, feels like he's got more alliances being built now. The tariff piece is in his corner. And I think he might try to push Russia a little bit too much. He needs to be booted out. Putin, good luck. Who's gonna usurp Putin? He controls everything, right? He controls everything over there. People argue that Putin is the richest man in the world. We just don't know how much he has. And why would he tell us? He's got everything he needs. So, let's see what else is. Merlin chasing Gentile. Well, it was funny, guys, because when I was fighting in that street fight in Thailand, they were all the vendors closed the door. And I didn't come to realize is the vendors who were attacking us were screaming at the businesses that we were robbing them. They're yelling it in Thai. And luckily, I went to a tailor who was literally a block away. And he's like, we heard, they opened the door and let us in. He goes, you're messing with the mafia. You're messing with the Thai mafia. He goes, that's not a good thing to do. So just remember that. Big Eb says, it's a dilemma. Russian oil sales fuels the Ukrainian war funds. I know. And again, Big Eb, I think it goes right back to my example of the Thailand thing, because if I'm scaring away a customer from those DVD salesmen, I'm threatening their business. So they had every right to attack us. It'd be one thing if we had an isolated conversation and I didn't scare business away, but in that situation, we scared business away. And then what we're doing right now is we're scaring business away from Russia by telling India, no go, no oil for you. Could get touchy. And thanks, guys. Yeah, I've been working out 5 days a week. I've lost about 17 pounds, which has been pretty good. Hey, forget Ozempic, folks. If you want to lose weight, just break up with your significant other. That'll cause you to lose a lot of weight. All right, so that's the trade issues there. I know, John, trust me, it's like, holy cow, that's a lot for me. That's a lot. But it's actually right where I've been losing it where I want it, which is my belly. And given my workouts, I don't know if you guys have ever done a Tabata workout. I highly recommend Tabata workouts for you. All of you. You can get there's a free app I use called Tabata Timer. For those who don't know what that is, Tabata Timer is like you do 20 or 30 seconds. So mine is I do 30 seconds of an exercise and then 10 seconds of rest. And I pick 8 exercises and does that whole cycle, right? 30, 10, 30, 10, 30, 10 for 8 exercises. and then it does a 2-minute break, and then you do it all over again 2 more times. So you don't have to do anything that's extreme, but like I'll start off with jumping jacks, and then I do weighted squats. So I take dumbbells and I'll do squat presses up in the sky. I'll do burpees, I'll do bicycles, I'll do crunches, I'll do planks, I will do high knees, all sorts of 8 exercises. But I'll tell you what, if you guys stick to that routine, I mean, I'm burning probably 300 calories in 19 minutes, and I do it every day, 7 days a week. It's good. Definitely trimming down myself. So it's a good thing, and it keeps my spirits up and kind of my mind off of the drama of relationship issues. So yeah, thank you guys. I plan on actually getting much more defined. So maybe I'll do a show without the shirt for the ladies, but I got to get a little bit better there. But the guns are getting there. We're looking okay. Exactly. Movement, right, Rob? Movement. And especially for the people who are like, oh, I don't like to work out. All you have to do is just do standing squats for 30 seconds, right? And then just keep doing that 3 times. It's good. It's good. All right, let's go into Palantir's earnings. I know we got some people who are like Palantir fans, and there we go. Palantir earnings were great. They hit $1 billion revenue for the first time. Let's go look at those numbers here. You got revenue hit $1 billion versus $940 million. They made 16 cents per share versus 14 cents, which doesn't seem like that great. However, here is where I think it really took off. They expected revenues to range between $4.14 billion and $4.15, and that is way up from the previous numbers of right around $3.9 billion. So they are definitely on fire, and I didn't read through all the statements. I just kind of caught the Cliff Note versions of it, but it looks like they are just kicking ass on demand and services. They're crushing it, and the chart just speaks volumes of it. Let's look at PLTR. Not only was it up 4% during the trading session, it was up another 4.5 after hours. Right now it's only up 3.6%, but on the 5-minute you can see here, big move up on that earnings call, which of course makes it your popcorn trade of the day. I do have a few more notable names later this week, but Palantir is really the biggest one that we had for today's trading session. So drifting back down a little bit now, we hit a high in that after-hour session of 172.25, which I think is making a lot of people here happy, because I know some of you are holding your Palantir shares. All right, and it's funny when you have a move like that. We'll bring it back to the daily here, and I'll put a line up at 172 where we peaked out at today. When you have a day like that, it begs the question, do you sell some on the open? Do you lock in a little bit of profit and then buy back later? Because it seems to me like this is the type of scenario where you do have a gap up, a little bit of a pullback here and retrace, and then it continues that trend to the upside. But, really just going back, just from the beginning of this year, let's see, Palantir for the year. Well, that was poetic. Palantir for the year. Let me go back to January 1st here. We'll go to the first day of the year to exactly where we're at. Palantir, not including the after-hour session today, Palantir is 113%, not including the after-hour session. Oh, it's 18%? Yeah, well, that's a pretty big move. It seems like they just blow out every time on earnings and have just great jumps to the upside. So we'll see if we get a gap up and a little bit of a sell-off, but everybody right now is just on fire and excited about Palantir. Yeah, I'm all right. I got my Palantir taken away from me a long time ago. Hey, at least you made a little bit of money on the puts, right? You got a little bit of premium collected there. As far as my trades goes for today, not a lot. I only made one trade today. Smaller position, but I just didn't see anything I really wanted to jump on. I keep going back to UNH just because it's such a discount right now. But I'm going to, here's UNH. So I did not get anything new on UNH. You did have a little bit of a retreat today as it bounced back up 1.35%, but still not looking so good. Remember, we hit 135 last Friday, and as we zoom out here, this chart looks abysmal. It looks just absolutely bad and horrible. I don't think they're going away. I am in the camp of this business is way too big to fail. We heard Big Eb, I think last week, saying he's going for the 250 strikes, selling some puts there, and I know he did and then got out of it. Oh, you took it off, huh? Yeah, okay. No longer in your watch list. I think at some point this will start to turn around, but we've got, like I said last week, it has to get some settlement from these federal cases. They need to just pay a bunch of money, take the write-off, and move on from it, and hopefully fix their practices so the feds don't come back in. But yeah, this is definitely looming over them. The other one that I did jump on a little bit was Amazon. So you guys know I think Amazon is probably the greatest company on the planet. I know people say it's Apple, say it's Nvidia. I just look at how many lives Nvidia or Amazon impacts, and so I sold some puts today on Amazon. I was going to go a little bit lower. You guys can see if you created a demand zone on this bad boy, it's not that great of a demand zone, honestly, but it's right between 207 and call it 210. And the crux of that is you had this kind of slow sell-off going, and then it gapped up, and then it proceeded to have a nice rally for the next month. So we've gapped down significantly on their earnings and came right back down towards that 210 level. Right now it's at 212 in the after-hour session. I sold the 210s today, and here's the current positions, the trades I have. So I'm long 600 shares. The cost basis for MicroStrategy is not correct. Remember, I have 300 that was. I have 300 shares from 410, and I have 300 shares from 385, less the premium. So I'll update this cost basis so we can get that number down precisely for you. So I have 600 shares of that now. These are the trades that were made. As you can see on Friday, I was put those shares of MicroStrategy at 385. I collected 432 premium on that. Today I sold Amazon puts. I sold the 210 strike expiring this Friday, collected $1.85. So it's a little bit risky because obviously it's just getting clobbered right now, and the cloud computing was not a really good thing, and it just didn't seem like a great report for Amazon. But I'm good for the long time. Good for the long haul on that one. My long calls in Amazon are crying tears. Wow. Yeah, those long calls not doing so well. Can't win them all. Sold 425 covered calls on MicroStrategy. Okay, good. So I sold the 400s today. What's your expiration on that, Lisa? You can see here the MicroStrategy 400 calls is what I sold expiring this Friday, and that would be I collected $4.70 premium. Remember, that's times 6, so there was it was a nice week of premium. Ideally, we don't get a huge rally in MicroStrategy. Ideally, it bounces back up to in the 390 range. Right now, if you look at MicroStrategy, which I'll bring up here for you. Okay, so you got very little premium on that one. Okay, let's go to MSTR. All right, let me get rid of that line. So yeah, a nice rebound today. I'm a little bit disappointed that Friday's activity was so just atrociously bad. Came right back down to those lows that really we have not been able to break that low right around. Let's just at least close below 362 for quite some time, all the way back into April of this year. So good news that we held right there. But yeah, I sold the 400 strikes. The 400 strikes calls against my position. But remember, I have half of it at 410, half of it 385. So we're actually pretty much break even right now on the position, even though it's down significantly from my 410 strike price. The 405s probably had good premium. They did. It's funny, Big Gab. I was really just looking at this. I'm like, I want my at least 1% for the week. It's my selfishness knowing I've got to get my 1% for the week. I probably should have gone a little bit further out. Like to 410, at least get back to my original strike price. But I don't think you're going to see a huge rally this week in MicroStrategy. I mean, I could be wrong, but it just feels like the pain is still there and people are still thinking about it. So let's go to the comment that came through from Les. It says, bullish Harami on MicroStrategy. Absolutely. And this is 100% a bullish Harami, because typically what you have is a sell-off, and then you have the candle for today, which is this one I'm mousing over, fits completely within the previous day's candle. So we had such an atrociously bad Friday on August 1st. Today's candle fits right in that. So essentially what you're looking at, let me just get some of the lines off here because it gets confusing. For tomorrow, your confirmation will be a close. It depends on who you talk to. I would say a close above today's candle, but I believe the textbook says a close above the high of the first candle. So one of those two lines. Let's just say 392.64. We get above that, and yeah, you should see some pretty nice upside move there. So there we go. Lisa says expected Bitcoin move on expected move on MicroStrategy was $24. It was up 21 at one point today. Close. Darn expected moves. Gotta love that Black-Scholes model of expectations, man. They're pretty darn accurate. So yeah, this looks pretty good from a bounce point back to the upside. If I do see, big momentum when we start to scream towards that 400, I'll buy them back. I don't want to get out of my MicroStrategy this time. I got a decent position. I mean, 600 shares. It's not that much. 600 shares is only a couple 100,000, so it's not like a giant position, but certainly one that given the way that MicroStrategy moves, every company is up 22, almost $23 today for MicroStrategy. It's about what, 230,000 position. That's okay. So those are the two that I made today. Just opened up a new put position on Amazon and MicroStrategy, but nothing huge. I'm still being a little bit cautious. I guess I'm trying to preserve the gains. I've got pretty good gains this year, and I want to kind of keep going without taking too much risk. So, all right, what else I have on my plate here? That was all I had. There was a question. Again, some great comments and questions have come in from you guys, not only about the show, but also, offering support to me, which has been fantastic. So thank you guys very much for that. I do appreciate it, even though I may not say it enough. One of the questions, but I can't remember totally it off the top of my head, was talking about damage control. And again, what does that look like on a position, right? How do you deal with a losing trade and put yourself of the mindset, okay, I need to now control this? Well, one of two things will have to happen. So if we look at the MicroStrategy, go to MSTR, which is on your screen. Look, because MicroStrategy is tethered to the price of Bitcoin. Now, it's not one for one. It's not perfectly correlated, but there definitely is a tighter correlation between MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. Because that correlation is there, and because of my thoughts on Bitcoin and the overall long-term bullishness of it, I'm not so concerned if I ride down a losing position for a while on MicroStrategy. If I'm underwater for a few months, I'm not worried about that at all, right? I'm not worried if this drifts for lower a couple months, because I'm going to continue to sell premium and sell call options against my position. And when Bitcoin has its next big up move, then we'll get back into positive territory. So that's for me, damage control is something that I really like. Now, if it was something like UNH, right? UNH I think is a little bit different. UNH is in a very precarious position of the potential for significant downside movement on this one, right? You could see this thing drop into the 100 range potentially. We just don't know what the regulatory issues are going to be, how severe they're going to be, and what regulators are ultimately going to do with this. I haven't heard anything like, oh, we'll split them up, but they could face some serious fines for business practices. There's all Medicaid issues they're talking about, Medicare issues where they're talking about fraud. Those could be absolutely massive and crushing to this company. I don't think it's going to go away, but you still have to be, UNH could be the new Boeing, could take years. I agree. I don't think this thing's going away. They're still making tons and tons of money. They're making really good money, but their model may be changed here, and extra regulatory scrutiny could put pressure on them. So, this is one of those ones where if you're long on UNH, you may want to have a level where you say, here's my max drawdown, here's my max loss on this one. Margaret asked, do I have a max dollar amount for risk? Usually I do, Margaret. On MicroStrategy, I don't. Right? With MSTR, it's fine. I mean, you guys all know my thoughts on Bitcoin, and maybe I'm being too optimistic on Bitcoin and its prospects as a monetary exchange unit for the future. But I think we're going to continue to go higher and higher and higher over the next few decades in the price of Bitcoin. So if I have to hold on to MicroStrategy a bit longer, I'm fine with that. Even if it was to drop 50% from here, I'm still going to be selling covered calls weekly against my position and continue to lower my cost basis more and more and more. So with MicroStrategy, and I don't think I'm going to go much bigger than this. 1,000 is usually kind of like the high side for me on MicroStrategy, so I don't, but I think 600 is probably fine for my position for right now. Mick says, my best trade ever was MicroStrategy at $30.60, 2,000 shares. Man, too bad you're not holding it today, bud. Too bad you're not holding it today. Not like a 10x trade plus on 2,000 shares. Man, it's staying with you too. I'm sure in your head you've got this idea that MicroStrategy is so good. Yes. Oh, you are still holding it. Right on, Mick. Oh, beers are on you, bud. Let's go back to another one. Let's go into, what was that crazy one from last week we were looking at? There's some BMR. What was that one? Yeah, Mick's buying that one. BitMine, BMNR. You look at something like this, and this would be a totally different story. Remember, with MicroStrategy, to me, it's tied to the price of Bitcoin. I believe those are tethered. If you look at UNH, the UNH is a healthcare juggernaut. I can't imagine that you would let them fail. with this BitMine Immersion Technologies, look, these guys are changing their business model on a daily basis to oh, now we're going to do, submersible Bitcoin mining, and now we're going to release out cloud space, and now we're going to be a Ethereum treasury and Bitcoin treasury. They're all over the place. So for stuff like this, going back to Margaret's question about, do you have a certain amount that you're willing to risk? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely I do. And the reason for that is this thing could go to zero. We just don't know. Was it Figma? Oh, yeah, well, I wouldn't touch this thing. Look at that. Look at this. That's just a horrible picture there. I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. But I definitely want to, stay away from stuff like that. When we looked at Circle, which has been drifting lower, it's coming lower. We're now at 163. This thing will be double digits soon. I think in the next few months, this thing will be double digits. But, like this type of play, yeah, I told you guys I had $7,000 worth of risk on this one, right? $7,000. And I've already lost $6,000. So technically I have another $1,000 left in it to go short if I want to, but I'm not. I'm not going to mess with this thing again. We'll lock it up at a $6,000 loss. So typically I do have a very specific number in my head. Sometimes it's a percentage, but most of the time, Margaret, it's a dollar amount. I say, I'm giving up $5,000 on this one or $2,000 on this one. Timing problem with your put trade? Yeah, it was. When we looked at that thing and it was hitting $300 and their IPO price was, supposed to be 30, that's just insane. That's stupidity. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people that bought this thing at $300 and now it's drifting lower and lower and lower. And like I said before, it's a great concept. It's a great project. It is a stable coin and they are going to be absolutely everywhere in a few years, right? Risk first before profits. And I had my risk. I knew my risk, and that's it. Circle problem is its high implied volatility made shorting it tough to. Yep, that it did. No problem, Big Ab. I'm gonna be wrapping up here too soon, so I'm just gonna do a quick little run through our top 10, look at a couple little other pieces here, but I've got the stuff I need to out of the way, the big stuff anyway. Let's go and look at our markets and work our way from the bottom to the top. You guys, those that are taking off, have a great day. Crude oil. I did look at crude oil today. The premium just wasn't there, and again, I do think that this little yellow box is gonna hold, but look how many times we've hit it. I know I've gone through the supply and demand analogy where you're chipping away at the concrete. Well, this thing's chipping away more and more and more. That crude oil is just nailing that top yellow box there between $64.60 and $65.50. If that continues, that level is going to break and you're going to go straight down to this next one. So I keep wanting to sell some puts on crude oil, specifically USO. Nope, not UCO because I'm not doing leverage. But you can see because of the futures rollover here, it actually does not have that same flat line. It's actually getting higher because these futures are having to pay a higher price every time. So there you go. You almost have like a nice little uptrend here going on USO. So there you go. What else do I have? That was crude oil. The 10-year down 0.5%. This also is getting very interesting because I'll put a line on the dead low here, at least for the last couple of months. And you can see that dead low goes back to July 1st, which is 4.187%, which we hit today. 4.187% is what we hit today. Now the next like dead low that you got to be concerned with is 4.124. After that, guys, there's nothing really to stop this from falling much further, which is interesting because it's going the exact opposite way that I thought it was going to go. I thought that this was going to be moving to the upside. I thought yields are going to go up. And again, I'm wrong, and I'm okay to admit it, right? Like Margaret says, great for housing stocks. Yes, this will be very good for housing stocks going forward. So if you're looking at things like Toll Brothers, you can see Toll Brothers now on a great uptrend, and also the last few days have been great. You got, Lennar is another one. You've got KBE Homes, right? They're all starting to look a little bit better. And the lower those yields go on that 10-year, the better it's going to be. So this is an interesting chart setup here because this is the cost of capital, not just for housing, but as this goes lower and lower and lower and lower and lower, that could add a lot more to economic growth and expansion, which we need because we're hearing the jobs data is not as good. At least that's the narrative we heard on Friday. So just keep your eye on this 10-year yield. If we break that 4.18, I think we're going to 4.12. After that, we could get sub 4. I know it sounds crazy, but we could get sub 4. Dakota says, why does a 10-year affect housing prices? Well, it's a great question. It's a fantastic question. So when you look at what the 10-year represents, the 10-year is the basis for the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So if this 10-year is falling like it has, your 30-year fixed rate mortgage is also falling. So if the yields, if the amount that people are paying for their mortgage, let's just say hypothetically goes from 7% down to 6%, a lot more people can qualify to buy homes, right? Because a 6% mortgage is way easier to pay for than a 7% mortgage. So what it does is it brings in more buyers into the arena for houses. Easier to qualify too, because you can make the 6%, maybe not the 7%. So you have more people that are looking to buy homes. More people buying homes drives the prices of those homes up, and we get increase in real estate values, which have actually been dropping here recently. So that's how it would happen, Dakota, is it basically means cheaper money, easier for people to qualify for loans. They can now go and buy homes that they may not have been able to afford 6 months ago when we were over 7%. So yeah, you're bringing in a whole new wave of buyers. And plus, the lower those yields get, the more incentives and deals these home builders issue, and more money and profit. So our dollar index was no big deal today. We've had that really big reversal. Remember, we broke out on Wednesday. We had a nice breakout and then came screaming back down on Friday. Let's see if this continues back to the upside, because we're starting to make some higher lows here. Remember, it's been a very aggressive downtrend since the beginning of the year for the dollar. Right now, it looked like it just has a nice little breakout to the upside and gave it all back in one day. Dakota Craft said, I thought Jerome Powell had that controlled. No. The Fed does not control the long end of the yield curve. The Fed controls the short end of the yield curve. They short the short-term treasury. I mean, the overnight rate is their domain. They control that. Can they manipulate the long end by buying or selling 10-year bonds that they've collected? Yes, right? So one of the things that the Fed can do in Operation Twist and QE 1, 2, 3 is they could go out there and proactively buy 10-year bonds. Right, so they're going to buy the 10-year bonds. That creates more demand for those 10-year bonds. Therefore, yields drop. So the more that the Fed buys of those 10 years, the more the yield drops, which of course stimulates the economy, which is what we saw happen back in 2008, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. They've been doing it ever since. Now they're doing a bit of unwinding. Now that means they're selling those bonds, which should theoretically start to push yields up. However, we're seeing a lot of demand. As Bill Addis said on Friday, we're seeing a lot of demand for bonds issued, especially the longer term stuff. And in my thinking, the reason that's happening is these 10-year bonds, they carry a pretty decent yield, 4.18%. I can guarantee that I'm going to get 4.18% rate of return for 10 years. If you go to something like Forex Factory and you go to the market and you scroll down a little bit, you will see... I thought there was a table of yields. Here it is over here on the left-hand side. You can see the U.S. is paying the highest right now, 4.5. If you're a European and you got 4.15, what would you do? Well, you'd take your euros, you would convert that into dollars, and you'd lock in a 4.5% rate of return. So it's creating more demand for ours because we're the highest. So the more that people buy our bonds, the more likely those yields are going to get lower and lower and lower. And so far, it looks like it's starting to work. So great questions, Dakota. That was, really good. And also, most people don't know that you can almost same in a stablecoin. Yeah, and that's an interesting one too, right? But remember, the big worry there. So what Oliver is saying is you could get 4.1, 4.2% by buying a 10-year bond. Now you've locked it in for 10 years. Or you can get 4.1 or 4.2% by buying a stablecoin. And that's true. You could. However, those stablecoins are not insured. Now, what I think is going to happen down the road, give us another, let's say, a year. A money market fund is FDIC protected. A money market fund is insured. Well, a stable coin would be structured very similar to a money market fund. So what I believe will happen within the next year is stable coins, once they've gone through the permitted process by the U.S. government and all the regulators, those will be FDIC insured. That's another great supporter for growth of cryptocurrency and digital assets. Now it'll be insured and protected. All right, another one that came out with earnings, Steve, was on semiconductor, and they got just shellacked, down 15.5% today, 47.97, where it closed at, and it's still down in the after-hour session. I did look at this one too, and I was like, semiconductors are great, chip space is great. Maybe tomorrow, if it has another down day, I'll look and see if I can get some premium at the $42 mark. But that's the only spot I'm interested in, is way down there. But yeah, it was a pretty bad day, pretty bad day for on semiconductor. Again, bad earnings. They were expected to report 53.2, and they came out at 53. So it's slightly lower, but again, I didn't see the report what they said, but it looks like lower expectations and forecasts. So at least with Palantir, you had a raise, an increase of forecast. HIMS, I don't know. HIMS to me seems like smoke and mirrors with all the erectile dysfunction pills and grow your hair pills. It's like, this is the insecurity shop is what it is. Now it's hers as well. God, beautiful shooting star on it last Thursday. Today, they beat earnings. Their earnings were supposed to be 15 cents per share. They came out at 17, but the chart, their comments were not good. Down 11.81% after hours. And again, this is not the type of company that I would jump on here. Oh, is it something to do with Ozempic? This is not something that I would... I don't like this company personally. I wouldn't do it. On semiconductor, yeah, I think that that's a much more legitimate business. HIMS, and it's just a little bit weird to me. All right, so I think that's going to do it for me. What are some stable coins to look at, Merlin? I'm interested in going this route. Well, for right now, the only one that I would really say is okay. And again, I don't know 100% what's going on behind the scenes, but USDC, which is issued by Circle, which is publicly traded now and has tons of scrutiny. On their website, they have their full audit trail of what they're invested in. And you can earn 4.1% by just holding it at Coinbase. So I would probably say just go with USDC. I wouldn't mess with Tether. I think Tether is a little too scary. Tether holds Bitcoin, they hold gold, they hold all kinds of other investments, which I think makes it a little bit too risky. And I just wouldn't mess with that one. But yeah, you can see right here, I'll show you, 4.1% APY. And if you are one of their I think it's called the One Club or something like that, you can get like 4.2, maybe even 4.3%. But 4.1% just for keeping my stable coins here is worth it. And it's not a lot of money. I just have like kind of an emergency balance if I want to like buy some crypto real quick of $5,000 sitting here. But there you go. Okay, let's go look at your economic calendar for tomorrow as it starts to get a little bit hot upstairs. I'm got a little sweat on my lip right now. I can feel it. Here is your economic calendar for mañana. Obviously today, not a lot going on. We had factory orders, which were disappointing, but in line with expectations, essentially. Tomorrow, you have ISM Services PMI, and that's pretty much it for the U.S. Now, there's some trade balance numbers and other pieces, but really the big ones, the ISM Services PMI, and expectations are that's going to stay right around 50, which is not good. That means that there's not a lot of optimism. It means things feel like they're just kind of stuck right where they're at. So not great news there. And lastly, let me go and bring up my earnings calendar here, which I did not have that all set up for you guys. Apologize for the lack of preparation. 409 companies reporting on earnings tomorrow. Big one there is going to be AMD, Caterpillar. You have Amgen, Arista Networks, Eaton, Pfizer, Duke Energy, BP. So a lot of energy companies. And no, Margaret, I just haven't. I've been so... If you guys saw I shouldn't do like a behind the scenes show, like what's been going on in my life behind the scenes here. It's been terrible for me this last 3 weeks. But I will reach out to Scott and Justin Krebs as well. I have some questions for Justin, which I may just use the show to answer my own questions. But I'll probably have Justin on. I'll probably have Scott McCormick come on. I'd like to have Larry come on and Todd and some others, but I just haven't reached out. But I will. I will, Margaret. Keep bugging me, Margaret. I love you. Keep pressing me to get guests. Keep pressing me to fix that book. And a 6-month meetup. Well, the problem there, Oliver, is if we do a meetup, it's only really for people that are local, and that's not fair to everybody else because most people live in other parts of the world. But I'm okay to go have a drink here locally if you guys want to. All right, that's going to do it for me, everybody. I'm going to go to the dog park and stretch my dog's legs and get some sunshine, some vitamin D. I hope you guys do something fantastic with the remainder of your day. I will see you all tomorrow. If you got something you want me to discuss, email me, tradermerlin@gmail.com. That's the easiest way to get me. Or put your comments down below any of the YouTube videos, and I will talk to you guys then. Take care. See you tomorrow.